wife, mother of two, and full-time design engineer. For most women, that list of responsibilities would represent a full schedule. For Padma Kuppa, however, they are just partial segments of the life she works to balance that also includes involvement with her temple, her children's schools, community service projects, not-for-profit organizations, and some very public social activism that has propelled Padma to roles in local and state governments as well as on national advisory boards. When asked what drives her to reach out in so many directions, this forthright woman responds with one primary desire: to ensure that the Hindu voice is represented in this country she now calls home.
So in 2002, the city of Troy decided to organize a group. At that time, we had 20% of the people in Troy were born in another country in 2002.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Was there
Now
any
it's
one country that was...
predominantly India.
You started to say the city was 20% minority.
At that time, 20% minority, and they decided after 9/11 that they needed to make sure that we engaged the diversity. And so I applied for that board. We called it the Ethnic Issues Advisory Board, so that we could better engage the diversity and not let everybody be so siloed, because we have a tendency to be siloed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a significant minority, that significant minority group will stick within themselves because they want to teach their children the language or the culture or whatever.
And you're comfortable there.
And you're comfortable.
Among your own.
Right. And so how do you get people to engage? Because, and I remember reading like Laura Ingalls Wilder or other books of pioneers. The new immigrants are also pioneers.
Right.
But the difference is that the older immigrants during Laura Ingalls' time were predominantly Caucasian or white, so there wasn't as much difference in terms of outward appearance. And then the other thing was that there was no technology that kept you connected and kept that umbilical cord to the home country alive. And so you really needed to find a way for what I was, which is a third culture kid, where you had a culture in the home, a culture in the community or in the school, and the child creates a third culture to balance between those two. I wanted a way to make sure that all those third culture kids had a safe space.
What's a safe space?
Where they could be both. I always used to say when I was younger, like 11, 12, I used to tell my parents, because I'd been to India once while I was living here. In the 11 years that I'd been here, we only went once. And I said, I wish I could live on an island and I could flip the switch, so that when I wanted stuff that's Indian, I could have it, and when I wanted stuff that was American, I could have it. And so I wanted to feel comfortable in my own skin, no matter where I lived, because, like I said, I always felt like the outsider, whether I was here or there. Like, people will come up to me and say, where are you from? I'm from Troy. No, where are you really from?
Mm-hmm.
I've lived here the longest I've lived of any place in the world. So this is home. Right. To me, that was the best way that we could create this Ethnic Issues Advisory Board, was to bring people together. So we did cultural festivals where people shared. We did something called Ethnicity with a C-I-T-Y capitalized. That was all about the different cultures that were in Troy. We'd have a big tent with different cultures and countries represented, and you'd get a little passport and you'd go through the tent when you came to the carnival. And so I chaired that for a few years. I did stuff in the schools that my kids were involved in. I was even on the executive board when they were in high school. So I've been very involved in making sure that we were visible, that our needs were represented. Because, you know, I remember being in elementary school and people asked me, why did your mom wear a dot on her head? Like, as a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, how do I know? And teachers saying, why are you vegetarian? Like, I didn't know. And I'd have to go home and ask. And fortunately, my father, and more my father than my mother, had answers for me. I wanted to provide that same comfort to the kids that are in the community, that it's okay if your parents are different or if your culture that you're coming from is different. We're going to just create a safe space for you to be whoever you want to be.
So the concept sounds wonderful. My question to you is, in trying to create the safe space for the kids, did you find out that there was not a safe space for you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And so how do you balance, again, we'll go back to balance, of creating this kind of wonderland for children, of where it's a good place to learn about all different cultures and that kind of thing, and yet you might be discriminated against or not liked just because of the way you look?
You just forge on ahead. You know what? You can't change everyone overnight. And it's more about changing yourself anyway and accepting that people aren't going to embrace difference. And hopefully through stories, reaching them. Find a hook. What is it that moves somebody?
When you say stories, cultural stories?
Personal experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can have an opportunity. In 2007 or 8, I joined a women's organization called Wisdom. Women's Interfaith Solutions for Dialogue and Outreach. And I had a big controversy here in Troy that I kind of started over the National Day of Prayer. There was a group that wanted to have a National Day of Prayer that was Christian only, Judeo-Christian only, because I asked to participate. They'd been doing it for 10 years. It was part of Focus on the Family. James Dobson's wife, Shirley Dobson, started this organization called National Day of Prayer Task Force. And they were going around to various parts of the country, city halls, state governments, different places, making sure that there was a Christian National Day of Prayer, but they never said it was Christian until somebody else wanted to participate. Then they made it
somebody else being you.
Right, somebody who didn't believe in the Nicene Creed.
Mm-hmm.
They would bring in Jews for Jesus or Messianic Jews to say that they were Judeo-Christian, because that's the roots of this country. I see the roots of this country as being religious freedom
Mm-hmm.
and religious acceptance and tolerance, beyond tolerance. Reinhold Niebuhr's nephew, Reinhold Niebuhr, was a great theologian in the early 20th century. And his nephew actually wrote a book after 9/11 called Beyond Tolerance. I think 9/11 really shaped a lot of theology that, as I understand it, and helped me go back to Christian and early American theology, where they tried to explain, and historians who tried to understand what the Founding Fathers were thinking about when they wrote the First Amendment.
So you come up to this National Day of Prayer and say, Judeo-Christian, really nice. Can I throw in my Hindu religion? They said no.
They said no. They did not want me
Was this
there.
by letter, by telephone, in person?
At a city council meeting.
Was there any reaction from the crowd?
There were people who were both for and against being an inclusive National Day of Prayer for the city of Troy. I faced a lot of hate.
To your face or behind your back?
Both. There is still a sentiment that I'm sort of a disruptor.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, if
But I
trying
mean, there's some people who wear that proudly.
I
like stirring the pot kind of thing.
I'm kind of tired of being labeled that. All I want is for everybody to get along. Really what I want is people to understand that we all wear different labels and to look beyond the label at the individual.